Good evening to all our viewers joining us from Manila, and a very good morning to everyone tuning in from the rest of the globe. Welcome to this exclusive special edition broadcast of Global Sports Insight. I am your host, James Sterling. When you examine the long, storied history of modern athletics, you will find rare, fleeting moments that completely defy the logical progression of a scoreboard. There are specific points in time when the established hierarchy of champions and the cold, unyielding mathematics of world rankings and trophies are suddenly rendered obsolete. These structures are violently overturned not merely by a powerful forehand or an unreturnable serve, but by a massive, unstoppable cultural tidal wave that swallows everything in its path. We are breaking into our regular programming to broadcast live tonight because something truly impossible is currently unfolding down in Melbourne. The Australian Open, the inaugural Grand Slam tournament of the year 2026, was designed to be a coronation procession for the defending giants of the sport. The narrative was supposed to center entirely on Aryna Sabalenka, the immovable object, the ultimate boss of hard-court tennis, marching steadily toward yet another inevitable championship title. The scripts were already written to celebrate her dominance. The headlines were drafted in advance to praise her consistency, but as we speak, those scripts have been completely shredded. The headlines have been frantically rewritten by every major sports outlet on the planet. The center of gravity in the tennis universe has shifted overnight, moving away from the established queens of the court and landing squarely on the shoulders of a 20-year-old phenomenon. She has accomplished something that no one, not the veteran pundits, not the sharpest betting markets, and certainly not the tour officials could have possibly foreseen. We are talking about the rise of Alexandra Eala. The world has given her a new name. They are calling her simply the Era. And tonight, the breaking news we are bringing you is not just about a simple match result or a scoreline. It is about a fundamental paradigm shift in the sport. Reports currently flooding out of Melbourne Park confirm that for the first time in the entire history of this tournament, the viewership metrics and on-ground merchandise figures have flipped. The sales numbers, the decibel levels recorded inside the arenas, and the global social media engagement stats for Alexandra Eala have statistically surpassed those of the world. Number 1. Aryna Sabalenka. I want you to just let that reality sink in for a moment. We are facing a bizarre scenario where the presiding queen of Melbourne, Sabalenka, a woman playing flawless, power-hitting tennis, is walking into empty press conferences and practicing on quiet courts. Meanwhile, mere meters away, Court 6 is being physically barricaded by overwhelmed security forces. This is happening because thousands upon thousands of desperate fans are trying to catch a single glimpse of the Filipino southpaw. This goes far beyond mere popularity. This is a full-blown revolution. We are witnessing the live birth of an entirely new breed of superstar. For decades, tennis has been searching for a successor to the popularity of the Big Three era. We looked toward Europe, we looked toward the Americas, but it turns out we were looking in the wrong direction. The electric energy we have seen in the last 48 hours is unlike anything since the height of Linsanity in basketball or the early days of Manny Pacquiao. However, this fervor has been translated into the typically polite hushed cathedral of Grand Slam tennis. And that polite silence has been shattered. Eala has shocked the world not just by competing but by rendering the actual championship narrative secondary to her own compelling story. When you walk through the grounds of Melbourne Park today, you do not see the Belarusian flag dominating the skyline. Instead, you see a vast sea of red, blue, and yellow. You hear the deafening chants that drown out the official announcements on Rod Laver Arena. We are seeing a case of Sabalenka fatigue colliding head-on with a wave of pure Eala euphoria. The story we are covering tonight is how exactly did this happen? How did a player ranked outside the top 10 just 12 months ago dismantle the fame hierarchy of the sport's most dominant champion? What does it say about the future of professional tennis that the most valuable asset in the sport today is not the woman holding the trophy? Rather, the most valuable asset is the woman holding the hearts of an entire nation and a global diaspora. Tonight, we are going deep. We will look at the raw numbers that have absolutely stunned the WTA officials. We will analyze the Eala effect that has turned the Australian summer completely upside down. We will discuss the nickname that has suddenly taken over the internet, the Era, and why it implies that this is not just a fleeting moment but a permanent changing of the guard. Aryna Sabalenka is playing for a trophy tonight, but Alexandra Eala, it seems, is playing for history itself. This is the story of how the hierarchy of fame was shattered in Melbourne. This is the story of the new Queen of the Pacific. This is the story of Alexandra Eala. Moving on to Section 1, the atmosphere on the ground. To truly understand the magnitude of this shock, we have to take you inside the grounds of Melbourne Park. I have covered 15 Australian Opens. I have seen the peaks of Federer. I have witnessed the Serena Williams farewell tour firsthand. But what is happening right now with Alexandra Eala is fundamentally different. Usually the biggest stars are sequestered on the main show courts like Rod Laver or Margaret Court Arena. They play in the prime time slots. Tickets are sold out months in advance, and the atmosphere is corporate polished and entirely predictable. What Eala has done is democratize the hysteria because her ranking initially placed her on the outer courts, the people's courts. She became accessible in a way that Sabalenka simply is not. Sabalenka is a distant deity viewed from the upper tiers of a massive stadium. Eala is right there 5 meters away, separated only by a chain-link fence, and that proximity has sparked a fire. We have received reports from ground security that the crowd density around Court 6 during Eala's opening rounds exceeded the fire safety capacity by a staggering 300%. We spoke directly to tournament organizers, who admitted off the record that they were completely unprepared for this surge. The tournament organizers made a critical logistical error by scheduling her match on a peripheral court with a capacity of just 1,500, only to be completely overwhelmed when a massive wave of 5,000 spectators flooded the area. It was absolute pandemonium, as fans were seen scaling trash compactors and hanging dangerously from the perimeter fencing, chanting, "Let's go, Alex," with a deafening rhythm and intensity that felt more like a chaotic football derby in Manila than a traditional tennis fixture in Victoria. We are now receiving breaking analytics that are sending shockwaves through the sporting world, providing irrefutable proof of a shifting landscape. While Alex Eala was conducting a routine practice session on Court 10, the reigning powerhouse Aryna Sabalenka was simultaneously competing in a high-stakes live match on the primary show court. The broadcast metrics are in, and they are staggering. Television viewership across Southeast Asia, and the Pacific was 40% higher for Eala's training session than for Sabalenka's actual tournament battle. That specific statistic is the nightmare scenario that has major corporate sponsors scrambling for emergency meetings, representing a seismic shock to the entire attention economy of professional sports. Eala has effectively disrupted the financial establishment of tennis. Moving on to our second segment, the Sabalenka contrast. We must be objective and fair to Aryna Sabalenka. She is without question a generational talent and arguably one of the most dominant hard-court specialists we have ever seen in the history of the tour. Her raw physical power is undeniable, and in any previous season, her relentless march toward another Grand Slam trophy would be the solitary headline dominating the news cycle. But fame is widely known as a volatile and unpredictable beast. Sabalenka symbolizes the industrial machine of modern tennis. Highly efficient, devastatingly powerful, slightly intimidating, and maintaining a professional distance that feels almost robotic. She has conquered the Australian courts with such thorough dominance that for the casual viewer, the outcome feels predetermined. We simply expect her to demolish the opposition. However, clinical perfection often lacks compelling drama, whereas Alexandra Eala represents something far more visceral, a desperate struggle, and a monumental dream. Every single point she contests feels like a gladiatorial battle for survival, especially given that she is physically smaller than giants like Sabalenka and relies on heavy topspin to neutralize their power. She constructs her rallies with the strategic intellect of a grandmaster chess player, showcasing the unmistakable tactical DNA ingrained in her during her tenure at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Yet the most significant factor is that she embodies the narrative of the underdog. Rising against the odds, and the headlines we are seeing today stem directly from this sharp contrast in storytelling. Sabalenka possesses the prestige of a serial winner, but Eala carries the aura of a cultural savior. For millions of Filipinos and the wider Asian diaspora, she is far more than just an athlete holding a racket. She represents global validation, serving as living, breathing proof that athletes from their region belong in the upper echelons of the world stage. While Sabalenka competes for personal glory in her coaching box, Eala visibly and palpably fights for a flag carrying a burden of national pride that no amount of major trophies or prize money could ever purchase. The emotional disparity is clear. When Sabalenka strikes a winner, the audience offers polite applause. When Eala strikes a winner, the crowd is moved to tears. That emotional connection is the defining difference, and the reason why the barometer of fame has tipped so aggressively in her favor. Turning now to Section 3, the era and the deconstruction of a nickname. We need to discuss this specific moniker, the era. which began its life as a humble hashtag and a quiet whisper across social media platforms like X and TikTok. Originally tagged as the Eala era, in the last 7 days, it has evolved, shortened, and sharpened into simply the era. Why has this linguistic shift occurred? Because it signifies a historical line of demarcation before Eala Philippine and Southeast Asian tennis was largely considered a historical footnote. Success from the region was sporadic and occasional, but the term the era implies that those days of irrelevance are permanently behind us. It suggests a long-term dominion over the sport, and implies that we are not merely witnessing a fleeting lucky streak or a flash in the pan. We are witnessing the opening chapter of a narrative that will span a decade. Furthermore, this nickname taps into the deep-seated fears of the traditional tennis establishment. If you are a high-performance coach from Europe or America watching these events unfold, you are slowly realizing that the geopolitical geography of tennis is undergoing a radical transformation, and the era is about more than just Alexandra. It is about the millions of young hopefuls across Asia who are suddenly picking up rackets for the first time because they see a reflection of themselves dominating the global news cycle. History shows us that we have witnessed this exact phenomenon in other major sporting disciplines. Tiger Woods forged an era in golf just as Serena Williams forged an era in tennis. They fundamentally altered the demographics of viewership, participation, and the financial stakes involved. The market analysts currently dubbing this the era are predicting that Eala will generate that exact same level of economic and cultural disruption. The true shock lies in the velocity of this transition. She is merely 20 years old, barely out of her teenage years, yet she is already moving global markets. Major brands like Nike, Adidas, and Wilson are reportedly engaged in astronomical bidding wars behind closed doors to secure her signature. These corporations understand that signing the era is not simply about acquiring a player. It is about securing loyalty from an entire region of the globe. Section 4. The tactical evolution. We must also analyze the tennis itself because celebrity status without on-court substance is fleeting and will not sustain this level of hype. Eala's technical game has evolved drastically over the last 6 months, a transformation we observed closely during the qualifiers and early rounds here in Melbourne. The physical fragility that characterized her teenage years has vanished, and her serve, once considered a liability, has been transformed into a legitimate weapon, not through sheer velocity but through surgical placement. She is sliding that lefty serve out wide in the ad court, stretching opponents and opening up the geometry of the court in a way that reminds seasoned pundits of a young Rafael Nadal. However, the most startling development has been her psychological resilience and mental fortitude under extreme pressure. During her match against the seeded American, a contest many experts expected her to lose, she dropped the first set, a situation where the old version of Eala might have crumbled. Instead, she dug deep, utilized the energy of the crowd, smiled in the face of adversity, and invited the pressure in a quality of character that simply cannot be taught. That is the X factor that separates her from Sabalenka, who despite her immense power sometimes struggles to maintain composure when the stadium turns against her. Eala thrives in the chaos, and this tactical and mental evolution is exactly why her newfound fame is fully justified. It is not merely marketing hype. She is defeating players she has no business beating on paper, grinding down opponents who are physically stronger but mentally fragile compared to her iron will. She is exposing the cracks in the modern power game of tennis by utilizing extreme angles, delicate finesse, and sheer heart to dismantle the opposition. Section 5 covers the massive global ripple effect we are witnessing, and the data pouring out of Manila is absolutely mind-blowing. We have confirmed reports stating that when Alexandra Eala steps onto the court, the notorious gridlock in Metro Manila effectively disappears. Corporate productivity takes a significant nosedive as work grinds to a halt. Even schools are hitting the pause button on their curriculum, setting up projectors in assembly halls so students can watch the matches live. We have not seen this level of national paralysis since the prime fighting days of Manny Pacquiao. However, remember that this is for tennis, a sport that has historically held zero cultural traction in the archipelago compared to the titans of boxing or basketball. But make no mistake, this phenomenon is not contained within the Philippine borders. It is spilling over internationally. Right here in Melbourne, the Victorian government estimates that the so-called Eala effect has injected an extra $15 million into the local tourism economy in a span of just 2 weeks. We are seeing flights booked to capacity with supporters jetting in from Singapore, from Jakarta, and from Hong Kong, all making the pilgrimage specifically to be present for this new era. This explains exactly why her profile has eclipsed that of Aryna Sabalenka. You see, Sabalenka sells out stadiums to tennis enthusiasts, whereas Eala sells tickets to the general public. She has completely transcended the niche boundaries of the sport. She is becoming a household name in living rooms, where families do not even understand how the scoring system of 15 love works. And one has to wonder, where does this leave Sabalenka? It must be incredibly disheartening to be the world number one, the defending champion, yet walk around feeling like an extra in someone else's blockbuster film. We witnessed a very telling interaction during Sabalenka's press briefing yesterday, where reporters spent more time grilling her about the deafening roar of Eala's crowd support than asking about the mechanics of her own lethal backhand. While she navigated the questions with professional grace, the underlying tension was palpable. The reigning queen is finding herself upstaged by the rising princess, and the shift in power dynamics feels absolutely unavoidable. If that transfer of power does not happen on the scoreboard today, it has certainly occurred in the court of public opinion as we approach the finale of this broadcast. And as the sun begins to dip below the horizon over the Yarra River here in Melbourne, we have to look ahead. What is the true significance of this week? If Eala falls short tomorrow, or if she lifts the trophy, does it ultimately change the narrative? The answer is a categorical no. The actual scoreline of the match has rendered itself almost irrelevant compared to the massive cultural victory she has already secured. The shockwaves dominating the headlines about her surpassing Sabalenka in fame represent a bell that cannot be unrung. We are watching the diversification of tennis power in real time. For over 100 years, this sport functioned as an exclusive country club, heavily dominated by Western Europe, North America, and Australia. The superstars were carefully curated. They fit a specific aesthetic and background. Eala has completely shattered that mold. She has demonstrated that you can emerge from a developing nation, from a region with zero Grand Slam pedigree, and command the center stage through nothing but sheer willpower and magnetic charisma. The Eala era is not just a catchy nickname for a player. It is a prophecy for the future of the sport. We are officially entering the Asian era of tennis, and Eala is the tip of the spear leading the charge. Just imagine the young girl watching in Cebu tonight, or the aspiring athletes tuning in from Vietnam, Thailand, or Malaysia. Their eyes are glued to Melbourne, but they are not studying Sabalenka's perfect mechanics. They are captivated by Eala's unshakable grit. They are watching the Philippine flag waving proudly in the stands, and for the first time they are seeing a reflection of themselves. That spark of inspiration holds more value than any check for prize money because it builds the next generation. Aryna Sabalenka might very well leave Australia clutching the trophy. She may solidify her standing as one of the legends of the game, but Eala is leaving Australia with something far more potent. She departs knowing she possesses the rare ability to bring the world to a standstill and make a billion people hold their breath in unison. The initial shock has faded and the new reality is settling in. The hierarchy has been upended and the center of gravity for fame has shifted permanently. As we sign off tonight, one fact remains abundantly clear. The tennis world is no longer solely Aryna Sabalenka's kingdom. We are living through a historic transformation, watching the narrative rewrite itself live from Melbourne Park. I am James Sterling. Thank you for tuning in to our special coverage. Keep your eyes on the ball, but more importantly, keep your eyes on the horizon. Good night.